So this may either be a long video or a short video. Regardless, the message remains the same. So today I would like to speak about the myth of understanding. I believe that understanding is not as simple and as straightforward as people make it out to be. Now, it is written in the book of Proverbs, I believe, that wisdom and understanding is one and the same. One and the same. So, wisdom cannot be without understanding, and understanding cannot be without wisdom. So, as iron sharpens iron, so wisdom sharpens understanding, and understanding sharpens wisdom. Now, I've seen a lot of people speak about wisdom here on YouTube, and what always bothered me was that everyone would explain wisdom as knowledge applied. But that is not wisdom. Knowledge applied is exactly that. It is just knowledge applied. It is not wisdom. Wisdom is something that is much broader. It is much more vast. Like I said, and I'll say it again, wisdom and understanding is one and the same. You cannot have one or the other. When you think about understanding, it is not something that is one-dimensional, not even two-dimensional or three-dimensional. It is something that is written upon your heart. You cannot find it in a book. You cannot search for it in vast ranges of knowledge. When you think of understanding, I want you to picture a sphere. So you have the sphere, right? So when you watch and observe the sphere, it is not a one-dimensional shape. So it is round, so it goes right around. So you have the circle, that is one part of the sphere. Now, you have to focus on what is inside the sphere. So inside the sphere, you have layers and dimensions, beginning at the bottom, ascending upwards. And so that makes up the entirety of the sphere. You have the circle which goes around. Inside the sphere, you have the layers and dimensions which ascend upwards. Now that makes up the entirety of the sphere. So the way understanding works is, it is similar, the way understanding works is that it is similar to how a sphere works. So let's first observe the circle which goes around, which is the outer layer of the sphere. So you start at one point, right? Start at one point on the outer layer, and you go right around, until you arrive full circle at the point at which you have begun. So at this point, you have arrived full circle. So keep that analogy, and I want you to think about everything that a human might go through in life, everything a human might study, anything a human might learn or observe or experience. You will move in a circle, such as the old man and the sea. Picture the circle as an ocean, and you are a man on his solo travels, finding his way around the ocean, back at the point at which he has begun. So, take whatever experience, whatever knowledge, whatever topic, whatever subject you have your starting point, and then you go around the entire circle until you have arrived full circle. At that point, you have achieved a good range of knowledge and experience, even wisdom. But that is not where it ends. That is only the outer layer. But you also have to consider is the inner workings of the sphere, which are the layers and dimensions. Now, like I said, the layers and dimensions, they start at the bottom and they ascend upwards until it makes up the entirety of the sphere. So, picture yourself again on the outer layer, going around, 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 around. You have arrived full circle. But where are you in the inner workings? You are still on the very low level. You are still operating on the bare minimum. And so after having arrived full circle, you have ascended but only one layer and one dimension. And so now it becomes interesting because take for instance the story of Odysseus in the book of the Odyssey. In the book The Odyssey, this is a man who has toiled and worked hard to reach his home. As he has stated in his own words, I long to reach my home and to see the day of my return. It is my never-failing wish. And so, there were many times in which he was close to reaching his home, but then suddenly, something would pull him away. And so, after having already arrived full circle and having ascended a single layer and a single dimension, you'd find yourself back at the starting point on the outer layer. After all the work, after all the toil, you are back on the outer layer, back on the exterior of the sphere. And so you begin your journey again at the starting point. Picture yourself on the ocean. You go around, 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 until you have arrived full circle once again. And this time, you have ascended another layer and dimension within the sphere. And so now you have increased in wisdom, you have increased in understanding, and you have increased in knowledge. Remember, whatever goes on the outside also happens on the inside. What happens on the inside also happens on the outside. They go all together one and the same. You have no wisdom without understanding, and you have no understanding without wisdom. They sharpen each other, they complement each other, and they help each other. All in all, they strengthen each other. And so I want you to understand that there is a vast difference between understanding something and knowing what something means. You can know what something means, and you can even be tested upon what you know. And you may, let's say you write a test, you do an assignment about what you have studied, about what you know. You may score very good marks, you may even get full marks. Does not mean that you understand it. You only know what it means. And so, I want you to think about this very deeply and very clearly. Do not just seek to know what something means, but fully understand it. I myself am guilty of this. Back when I was still studying, I used to procrastinate a lot, and so I wouldn't have much time left before I would have to write the exam. And so because of that, I would rush. And in rushing, I would spend no time in understanding, but my sole focus would be to take up as much knowledge and information as I can, and my sole purpose would be to memorize all that I'm reading instead of understanding it. Now, while I did score very good marks and even get full marks, I did not fully understand it, and so that information never truly stayed with me. But according to the paper and according to the mark, I would be deemed, or anyone else would be deemed as knowledgeable just because they scored a high mark in a test. It's not about the mark. It's not about how much you can retain. It is about what is written on your heart. What is written upon your heart is what you understand. You never forget it and it never leaves you. Think about this. Have you ever watched an eagle in flight? The next time you see an eagle or eagles, I want you to carefully watch and diligently observe the eagle while in flight. So the eagle, it merely soars. It doesn't flap its wings like all the other birds. It just soars in the sky. But what I want you to pay attention to is that as it is soaring ever so slowly, ever so steadily, it moves in a circular motion. You barely notice it with the naked eye, but when you pay careful attention, you would notice that the eagle, as it soars, it is in a circular rotation, and it keeps that position, it keeps that flow. And I want you to also keep in mind the concept of the sphere and the concept of understanding and the building up of knowledge. So it soars, slowly ascending through the layers and the dimensions. Slowly, but ever steadily. Before you know it, the eagle would be out of your sight. Think about that. You've kept your eyes on the eagle the entire time. It was slow, soaring gracefully, steadily, in a circular rotation, while slowly and steadily ascending upwards until you can no longer see it. That is the inner workings of understanding, the building up of wisdom, the accumulation of knowledge. That is how it works. And because of that, as you have ascended through all the layers and dimensions within the sphere, and you have repeatedly worked yourself around the exterior, arriving full circle tenfold times and even more, you now dwell in the place of the eagles, which is in the midst of the clefts of the rock, where the eagle is alone, is isolated, and no other birds dwell along with the eagle within the clefts of the rock. Because of that, you are then isolated. You are alone, and you stay true to who you are. You stay true to yourself. You do not dwell where the other birds dwell, because you have been there, and you have ascended. And in ascending, you have made your abode in the place of loneliness, in the place of isolation, in the place where very few people make it. Think about the wisdom of birds, the wisdom of the fowl of the air, the way the fowl of the air operate, the way they move. Now, if you were to think from a physical perspective, all birds and fowl of the air, they are higher than all other animals as they operate in the sky. And yet, because they operate on such a high level, literally, they pay almost no thought to what they shall eat and what they shall drink. But every day, the Lord provides for them. Think about that. These are creatures which are free. They can go wherever they want. They can go wherever they want at their speed due to their gift of flight, and yet they pay little to no thought to what they shall eat and what they shall drink, and yet they flourish every day. Pay careful attention to the birds and all fowl of the air. Pay attention to how they fly, how they eat, how they drink. They have little to no thought for such things, and yet they flourish because they dwell on high. They dwell in the heavens. And because of that, their mindsets too and their thoughts are high and elevated, ascended. The myth of understanding is truly that, a myth. Think about the book of Job. It is not about a man who has unjustly suffered and at the end of his toil he received double for what he has lost. No. That is true, yes, but within the concept of the sphere, that is only understanding the story, having gone around the exterior but once, and only operating on the lowest layer and dimension. But remember, also in the likeness of the story of Odysseus, it would not be that easy to reach your home. You still have to go around the exterior numerous times. And in that same sojourning, also having to ascend within the inner workings of the layers and dimensions within the sphere. So remember, there are many people who are operating on a low dimension and a low layer, and yet within their own eyes they are wise. They deem themselves wise and knowledgeable, and that is because they do not know what they do not know. They are not aware of the higher layers and dimensions, nor do they have any grasp on the outer layer of the sphere, which goes round and round, having a beginning, the end being the point of beginning, for as man you have to arrive full circle, and that is how you ascend through the layers and dimensions of wisdom and understanding and knowledge. On a slightly different note, yet still the same topic, consider everything that you read, everything that you study. Study it diligently. Seek the Spirit of the Lord. For the Spirit of the Lord teacheth all things, and from him no thing is hidden. There are things which I believed to be true, but with the guidance of the Spirit of the Lord, I found myself completely wrong. Things which seemed so obvious, and yet so wrong. And this makes its way into so much of what goes on in our world. Each one is knowledgeable, wise in his own eyes, thinking he can be taught nothing, thinking because he has read a couple of books he is knowledgeable. The accumulation of knowledge means nothing if you are operating on a low level. Heed to this concept of the myth of understanding. and the sphere of understanding and the ascension thereof. Therein lies true wisdom. In silence lies true wisdom. Again, the attitude of the eagle. It doesn't fight, it doesn't look for trouble. It just simply ascends and dwells where he belongs. That is it. Simple. Also, do not be too quick to rebuke and to bind the strong man. But consider carefully and diligently. Consider your enemies and those who are against you. Think about the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis. Think about the story of Jesus. These are men who have suffered greatly, unjustly. They did not deserve any of what had happened to them. And yet the Lord had glorified them both. Them both. It is not always about rebuking and running and fighting. No. Sometimes it takes one man, one woman, who is willing to go through the fire, who is willing to go down to the depths of Hades, of Tartarus, who is willing to burn within the fiery furnace, as in the likeness of Daniel. And in so doing, one shall come forth as refined and perfect gold, having increased in all glory and light and beauty. It will be excruciatingly painful, yes, but like I said, all it takes is one man, one woman, who is willing to lay down their life for the greater good of their family and for the salvation of all of mankind. All things in this life are relative. What is good? What is evil? What is righteousness? What is wicked? What is pure? What is impure? What is defiled? What is undefiled? Would we ever truly know? Are we capable of ever truly knowing? Perhaps not. Perhaps we would never truly understand. Perhaps therein lies the beauty, the fact that we would never understand. Because while we are in this, in our flesh, we will suffer and toil all the days of our life. And yet still, it is a beauty and a privilege to share the human experience. To be a human, to feel the emotions and feelings and even sufferings of a human. Does not beauty and glory lie therein? Think about this. If you have watched this video, replay this video, watch it again. Think about it deeply. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe or to like this video. I do not care about such things, but if this is the sort of content that you like and you have any ideas or suggestions as to what you would like me to speak about, then feel free to comment, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe. But I think that is it for me for now.